Hi everyone, and welcome to the lecture video Types of Bloodstain Patterns. Let's get started. Now for this lecture video, I want to go over some of the more common bloodstain patterns that crime scene investigators will be faced with. This list is not all-encompassing, but it will cover all of the bloodstain patterns that you're going to practice during this week's laboratory activity. First, though, I want to clarify the parts of a bloodstain. When we're discussing bloodstains, you're going to see the term parent stain, satellite stain, and spines. Parent stains are the main stain, or the blood drop that you're analyzing at the time. Spines are the thin spikes that come out of the parent stain but still remain attached. Satellite stains are simply spines that end up detaching from the parent stain, Now, many of the blood stains that a crime scene investigator will want to document are classified as impact spatter. Impact spatter is caused by an object striking liquid blood. The speed or the velocity of the force is going to alter the size of the bloodstains that are left at the scene. The faster the force is moving, the smaller the bloodstains that will remain. This is because higher velocity forces will overcome the surface tension of the bloodstain more completely, and they'll separate it into smaller and smaller bloodstains from one another. In the past, investigators have classified impact spatter by using the site of the bloodstain, and they had grouped impact spatters into one of three velocity categories. However, what we found over time in research is that the force applied from an object can vary widely, and that creates multiple sizes of bloodstains no matter what the original velocity was used. So we don't distinguish between velocity categories anymore. That being said, because of the extreme high velocity of gunshot and explosive forces, there are some special types of impact spatter that are generally attributed to guns or explosives only, and this pattern is called misting. Due to the extreme force that is applied to the blood drop, the blood will separate into micro drops, creating a mist-like spray on the receiving surface. While micro drops can occur in smaller amounts from high forces like beatings, large misting patterns will usually indicate that a gun or another explosive device was used at the scene. Another characteristic of gunshot wounds is the presence of both backward and forward spatter. When a victim is shot through their body, blood will be projected in the direction of the bullet, and that's considered forward spatter because the bullet is going forward and the blood's going forward with it. However, the impact of the bullet on the body will also create blood spatter in the opposite direction of the bullet, and that's called back spatter. As you can see from this diagram, back spatter is the reason for blood on the shooter, as the blood will travel towards the gun and towards the shooter. Now, cast-off is a special type of bloodstain that can be used to help reconstruct the area of origin for injuries. Cast-off stains are linear bloodstain patterns that are caused by the backward force of a weapon being drawn for an attack. For example, imagine there's a spider on the floor. You grab your shoe and you hold it up. You're ready to cast that shoe down and kill the spider. You take aim and you cast the shoe down, but the spider is quick and he moves out of your range. So you pull back your arm, ready for a second throw. When you're doing that, when you throw your arm back up, you're creating a force in the opposite direction as the spider. Anything that's on your shoe at this point is going to be flung backwards away from you. And that type of force is what creates a cast-off stain. In terms of crime scene reconstruction, cast-off stains can be really useful pieces of information. Cast-off stains serve almost as an arrow that points to where the injury location occurred, with the more circular droplets indicating a close to 90-degree impact, whereas the trail of elongated drops will point away from the injury location. Cast-off patterns can also give us a minimum number of blows that were sustained at the scene, because cast-off stains will only occur on the second blow or third, fourth, fifth, etc. So continued injuries that are followed by a weapon backswing is going to create additional cast-off stains, with one cast-off stain per backswing. So it can give us kind of an idea about how many blows at minimum were sustained by the victim. Drip trails are considered what we call a passive bloodstain because they're the result of gravity, not force. Drip trails are usually circular in nature because they're passive drops from either a person or an object, and they're pulled down by the force of gravity alone. The faster the rate of movement, the more distance between the drops on the drop trail. So you can see in these photos, we have a slow walk where we have lots of drops next to each other, and we have a fast walk or a slow jog where the drops are still circular, they're still dropping by gravity, but they're more spread out because the person's moving faster. Now, flow patterns are also considered passive blood stains because they're the result of movement of blood due to gravity. Flow patterns can help investigators identify victim movement and body adjustments because flow patterns that move in opposition to gravity will suggest that something was moved or adjusted prior to the scene investigation. This can be the result of purposeful manipulation, like moving the body on purpose to hide a crime, but it can also be a result of the natural movement during the scene. For example, a victim that was shot in the chest while standing is going to start to have some blood flows immediately starting on their chest and moving towards their feet. If that victim then falls down to the ground at some point, the blood flow will change orientation. So it originally was going down to the feet. If I fall down to the ground, now it's going to change to drop from my chest onto the ground, however I'm laying. So we can look at the amount of flow trails on the chest because that will tell us an estimate of how long the victim remains standing. If I got shot and there's just a little bit of flow and then I immediately fall over, you're going to see that. If I'm standing for a long time after I was shot, you're going to see a lot of flow patterns, maybe even down my legs, and then I'm going to fall over and you're going to see that change in orientation. Now, there is a category of bloodstains called transfer bloodstains. These occur when blood moves from one object to another through direct contact. For example, a swipe stain is caused by a bloody object that moves across a non-bloodstained surface, and that causes the blood to transfer from the moving object to the surface. A wipe is the opposite because it occurs when a non-bloodstained object moves across a bloodstained surface, causing the blood to transfer from the surface to the moving object. In both cases, there's a distinctive feature known as feathering that helps investigators identify directionality. Feathering appears as a gradual thinning of the blood towards one end of the stain, and it occurs because the stain contact slows the transfer of blood. Therefore, the direction of feathering always indicates the direction of movement. Transfer stains can also include impression stains, which occur when a blood-stained object is put into contact with a non-stained surface and then leaves behind an outline, like the shoe print impression that's left from a blood-stained shoe in this slide. Projected bloodstains are another commonly encountered bloodstain. Projected blood means that it was released under pressure from a body part. The most common types of projected bloodstains include arterial spurting, vomited blood, and expirated blood, which means blood that's expelled from either the nose or the mouth. Expirated blood is often identifiable by the air bubbles that's mixed in with the bloodstain. Even when the bubbles dry, or even when the stain dries, you're going to still see those air bubbles visible as light rings in the blood stain, and that'll indicate that there was oxygen mixed in with that blood, making it most likely expirated blood. Now, voids are considered what we call an altered blood stain, meaning that the blood stain has been physically changed after the stain was deposited in some way. Voids occur when a person or an object is in the way when a blood stain was originally deposited, and then the person or the object moves, leaving behind a blank space. The last type of blood stain I want to discuss in this lecture is called a skeletonized stain. A skeletonized stain occurs when something wipes through a partially dry blood stain. This leaves behind a ring that outlines the original stain shape while still displaying the feathering that's indicative of a wipe. Skeletonized stains provide investigators with two things. You have documentation of the original stain, and you can track angle of origin and all that good stuff, while it also indicates the physical movement after the event in question. Because obviously, if you have a skeletonized stain, it means that there was some delay between the blood hitting the surface and then the later movement on top of it. So that can give us a good idea of events sequencing. All right, well, that concludes our lecture on types of bloodstains. Thanks for watching, everyone.